So what is a healthy diet? We have all kinds of diets out there. We have the Atkins carnivore keto type diets that rely heavily on meat. Then we have on the other extreme the vegetarian or vegan diets, about which many fantastic claims are made. And then we have what I call dietary schemes, zone, all raw, macrobiotic, South Beach. Remember the South Beach diet? Came and went. Juicing, food combining, blood type, metabolic typing. I call these schemes because they were all made up by men. They were all made up by men who never had to put a meal on the table for a hungry family day after day after day. And unless you've been in the trenches and are able to prepare food that your children will actually eat, I really don't think you should be writing about healthy diets. Because, honey, I don't care what your blood type is, you're going to eat what I've prepared for you. So, okay. So even Lisa, who's very smart, even Lisa is confused about what constitutes a healthy diet. Then we have the official government diet, which came out in 1984. It was in the form of a pyramid. Now they've since abandoned this pyramid, but even the new My Plate diet is based heavily on carbohydrates, with some fruits and vegetables put in there, a little bit of animal food and hardly any fats, and very little salt. And this was supposed to help the obesity problem. And yet obesity has increased to 30% since they put this diet out there. So it's not working. And this diet is not based on science. It was formulated to promote the products of commodity agriculture. And the USDA, that's their mandate, to sell grains, to sell commodities. And that's what this diet is designed to do. And what it did, although they give lip service to whole grains, it gave Americans the green light to eat all the carbohydrates that they wanted to. And of course, this is how it ends up. This is the real food pyramid. So to answer the question, what is a healthy diet, we need to go back to the work of Weston A Price, who wrote this wonderful book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he was asking himself the same question: what is a healthy diet? Now, Weston Price was a dentist. He had a very busy practice in Cleveland, Ohio. And he was very perplexed because all he saw in his practice was problems in the teeth, decay, infection, and what he called dental deformities. That means crowded and crooked teeth. And he didn't think that any of this was normal. And at this time, the world was opening up and reports were coming back from isolated populations all over the globe, from anthropologists and explorers. And one of the first comments they always made was, these people have such beautiful teeth. They commented on the teeth and the ease of childbirth. Well, this intrigued Dr. Price very much because he was not seeing beautiful teeth in his practice. He was seeing all sorts of pathologies of the teeth. So he decided to see for himself, and he embarked on a series of investigations that took him all over the world over a 10-year period. And he wanted to answer two questions. The first question was it true? Was it true that there were people with perfect dental health, and by inference, perfect overall health? Because it was axiomatic in those days, if you had good teeth, you were healthy. That's how they chose recruits for the Army and the services. They looked at their teeth. If they had good teeth, they knew that they were going to be strong and sturdy. So was it true? Could he find healthy people in these isolated populations having healthy teeth and then healthy overall? And the second question he wanted to answer was, if he could find these people, what were they eating? What kind of diets supported excellent dental health, excellent overall health? He wasn't interested in what unhealthy people were eating. In fact, he said, I have no controls in this country. Everybody's sick. So he wanted to know what the diets were of healthy people. So we'll just look at a few places that Dr. Price went. He did these experiments or these studies at the most opportune time when diets were changing, he could still find isolated healthy people. He could compare them to the same people who had changed their diet for modern foods. Sorry about the farm equipment. And he also had a new invention, the camera, which allowed him to take these incredible, unforgettable photographs. So the first place that Dr. Price went was the Weston Valley in Switzerland. This was a very isolated valley. The only access was a footpath too narrow for a wheeled cart, so you had to walk in. And he could be assured that the only foods that they were eating was the foods that they grew and prepared right there in their village, with one exception, and that was salt. They did bring salt in, and there were other parts of Switzerland that produced salt. Now, what he did when he came to a tribe or village, he sat down with the elders, or in the case of Switzerland, it was people from the Department of Health who could interpret for him. And he sat down with the elders. In this case, it was the elders in the church, and explained what his research was about, and then got their permission. And then he lined up everybody in the village and meticulously counted cavities. He wrote these up in reports that were published in peer-reviewed journals and left an amazing record of just how frequent cavities were among traditional people. Well, here we are. Oh, and then the second thing he did was take notes on their overall health. He then described the foods that they ate, and he took samples of the food back to his laboratory in Cleveland and analyzed them for vitamins and minerals. So this is how he worked in all of these populations that he visited. That's a wonderful photograph of the Weston Valley today. Very, very narrow, very isolated. In fact, you can only get up here with a car in the summer. The roads are closed in the winter. Well, you can imagine the amazement of the dentist from Cleveland, Ohio. He starts looking in the mouths of all the children and then the adults. And he had to look in 3 mouths before he found even one tooth that had evidence of decay. So less than 1% tooth decay in the Swiss village. They didn't have any dentists, so this was just natural protection against tooth decay. But the other thing that really surprised him was that everybody had naturally straight teeth. There were no dental deformities. They had very broad faces, especially in what he called the middle third of the face between the eyes and the mouth. High cheekbones, which we consider the mark of attractiveness. So everyone had naturally straight teeth. They were very sturdy and strong and tall. The tall people, you can see the children on the right, face is a little bit small, but you can see they're very round. Everyone has broad, round faces. So the next question, the other thing was in talking to health people from the health department, there had never been a case of tuberculosis in this village. And this was a time when tuberculosis was the main health problem of Switzerland, and in fact the whole world. Tuberculosis was a great scourge, but these people seemed to be completely immune from tuberculosis. So the next question is, so what were these people eating? And the main food in their diet was dairy. They had goats and cows, and so they had raw milk, raw cheese, raw butter, raw cream. The athletes, during their performances, they had contests throughout Switzerland. They drank bowls of pure cream. That was considered very good food for athletes. The other food they had was dense sourdough rye bread. They could grow rye in the summer months, and they took a long time to make this sourdough rye bread. So the 2 main foods were dairy foods and grains. And this brings me to the so-called paleo diet. The paleo diet, the premise of the paleo diet is that to be healthy, we just avoid these 2 foods that are new to the human species, dairy foods and grains. But here was a superbly healthy population living on dairy foods and grains. So I don't think much of this paleo diet idea. But of course, the dairy foods were very different from the dairy foods that we have in the supermarkets today, and the grains were prepared with great care, and they weren't sprayed, and they were old-fashioned grains. we'll come back to this whole subject of grains. They did eat meat. They usually killed a calf or a goat once a week, and they ate the whole animal. They ate the blood. They put the blood into rye pancakes. They made blood sausage. They ate the organ meats. They cooked the bones. And this is one real fundamental difference between traditional cultures and our own, is they ate the whole animal, including the organ meats. Now, Dr. Price's work took place at just the right time, because he could compare traditional and modernized people, and he went to villages where there were roads that were bringing in the foods of commerce, as he called them, displacing foods of modern commerce. And there he found a very different situation. He found 1 tooth in 3 was decayed, and the children who were born to the parents who had changed their diets, they had more narrow faces, and they had crowded and crooked teeth. So in just 1 generation, the dental deformities appeared. This is not a genetic thing. This is a nutritional problem. Just going to go back a minute and talk about one other thing that he found in every single culture that he visited, and that was what we call sacred foods. And the sacred foods were considered very important for men and women before conception. Usually they ate these foods for 6 months before conception. Then for women when they were pregnant and breastfeeding, and for children when they were growing. They recognized that when a child is being formed and growing, that's when you need the maximum nutrition. And once you get to adulthood, you can improve your health with your diet, but you cannot change your form. Your house has already been built, okay? Your temple is already built. So the maximum nutrition is really important for conception, preconception, and growth. And this is a big emphasis of the Weston A Price Foundation. And these practices, which he found all over the world, put modern man to shame, because we don't teach this. This is what we should be teaching our children in schools. This is what every teenage girl should be hearing. To have a healthy baby, that depends on how you eat now. And most of our teenage girls, I think it's really cool to be vegetarians, and they eat a lot of sugar, and this is not a disaster in the making. This is a disaster that's already here. Well, what was the sacred food in the Swiss village? It was a special type of butter that came from the cows when they first went to pasture in the spring. This butter was on very deep yellow, almost an orange color. And so sacred did they consider this butter that they lit a wick and a bowl of butter on the altar in their church to honor the life-giving force in this butter. And I look forward to the day when all of our churches and synagogues and temples and whatever do the same thing, so that we understand that it's our responsibility. God gave us the blueprint. It's a perfect blueprint. But it's our responsibility to build the house according to the blueprint. And our children, our babies and children, are depending on us to have this knowledge. The other thing that happened when the modern foods came in, and these are foods based on sugar, white flour, they were selling their milk to the chocolate factory. Dr. Price rightly called chocolate the displacing food of modern commerce. And the other thing that was coming in was vegetable oils. These are completely new to the human diet, and they were replacing the good fats that they had always consumed. And so the other thing that became very common was tuberculosis, just a scourge of the modern world, and still is.